I went for a vasectomy with my wife by my side. As the anesthesia took hold, I remained semi-conscious, aware but unable to move. Through blurred vision, I saw the doctor slip an envelope to the nurse and whisper, "Give this to his wife. Don't let him or anyone see it." My blood ran cold. Something was terribly wrong. I kept pretending to be unconscious, my heart pounding. 30 minutes later, I discovered what was inside that envelope. I packed my things immediately and left town that same night. I'm about to tell you what was in that envelope, but I need you to do something first. Comment your location and current time. Let me know someone out there understands how terrifying this moment was. At 54, I thought I had life figured out. 25 years of marriage to Catherine, a daughter in her snorts, final year of law school, and Hayward Development Corp. The legacy my grandfather started and my father built into something remarkable. I was wrong about having it figured out. Dead wrong. Hayward Development was in my blood. 3 generations of building Charlotte, one project at a time. By the time I inherited the company after my father's death, 25 years ago, I knew exactly what kind of man I wanted to be. The kind my father was. Solid, reliable, a man who kept his promises. I met Catherine at a charity gala in February of 1999. She was 25, working as an event coordinator new to Charlotte. I was 29, newly in charge of the company, and lonely after losing my father. Catherine was beautiful, charming, and seemed genuinely interested in everything I said. We married by November. Lauren came 2 years later. For 25 years, I thought we'd built something solid. Catherine advanced to the director of public relations at a major hospitality group. Lauren grew up in our Myers Park home, a smart kid who wanted to make a difference. Law school at UNC Chapel Hill was her idea. She wanted to come back to Charlotte, maybe help with the business someday. That was the life I thought I had. But over the past few months, something had shifted. Catherine had grown distant, always on her phone, always with a reason to be somewhere else. The Tuesday evening that should have been my first warning, I came home to a dark house. Catherine was late from a client emergency. Lauren was at a study group. I ate leftover takeout alone. When Catherine finally got home around 9:00, she was distracted, checking her phone every 30 seconds. "Just work stuff," she said when I asked. "I'm exhausted." She went upstairs. I tried not to think about the fact that my wife felt like a stranger. The following week, she brought it up over breakfast. Lauren had already left for class. "Chris, we need to talk about something." I looked up from the newspaper. "Okay, we're 50 and 54 now. We have Lauren. She's practically grown." Catherine's voice was measured, reasonable. "I think you should consider a vasectomy. At our age, why risk complications we don't need?" The suggestion caught me off guard. We hadn't discussed this, hadn't even talked about whether we wanted more kids. "I hadn't really thought about it," I said. "I have. I've been thinking about it a lot." She reached across the table, put her hand over mine. "There's an excellent doctor here in Charlotte, Dr. Gregory Whitman. Highly recommended. Specializes in these procedures." Something about the way she said it made my stomach tighten. Not the suggestion itself that was logical enough, but the fact that she'd already researched the doctor, already had a name ready. "You've already looked into this?" I asked. "I just want what's best for us." "For our future," she squeezed my hand. "Will you at least meet with him?" I looked at my wife, at the woman I'd loved for a quarter of a century, at the face I thought I knew as well as my own. "Okay," I said. "I'll meet with him." Catherine smiled. "Thank you. I'll set up the appointment." Looking back, I can see all the signs I missed. The way she'd already planned everything, the relief in her eyes when I agreed. The fact that she had a doctor's name ready before I'd even considered the idea. But at the time, I saw none of it. I saw my wife of 25 years, the mother of my daughter, the woman who shared my bed and my life. The morning of the procedure arrived 2 weeks later, September 15th, A Tuesday. I remember because it was the last day I trusted my wife. Dr. Gregory Whitman came highly recommended. That should have been my first warning. Catherine drove us to Atrium Health Carolina's medical center at 7:00 in the morning. She checked her phone every 30 seconds during the drive. Not unusual. She was always busy with work, but something about the frequency felt different. "You okay?" I asked. "Fine, just nervous about you." She squeezed my hand. "You know I worry." At 8:15, we met Dr. Whitman in a consultation room. He was 51, steel, gray hair expensive. Watch the kind of confident posture surgeons develop after years of being the smartest person in every room. He barely looked at me, directing most of his attention to Catherine. "The procedure is routine," he said. "General anesthesia. 45 minutes total, quick recovery." Catherine asked questions. A lot of questions about the anesthesia, the recovery, the risks. Whitman answered each one with practiced brevity, his eyes meeting hers in a way that made something in my chest tighten. At 8:45, Nurse Michelle Roberts came to take me to the operating room. She looked young, early 30s, with dark circles under her eyes. Catherine kissed my forehead. "I'll be right here when you wake up." The operating room was cold, bright lights overhead. Roberts connected monitors. The anesthesiologist placed a mask over my face. "Count backward. From 10, Mr. Hayward." 10:09. The world went soft and dark. And then I was floating consciousness, but not consciousness. I could hear voices but couldn't move. Couldn't open my eyes. The anesthesia held me suspended, aware but paralyzed. Is his wife still in the waiting room? Whitman's voice low, tense. "Yes, doctor." Roberts uncertain. "Good. After we finish, give her this envelope." "Don't let him see it. She knows it's coming." My heart rate spiked. I felt it, the surge of adrenaline, the spike of fear. But the monitor stayed quiet. The drugs kept my body still, even as my mind screamed. "Doctor, I'm not comfortable." Robert started. "You're paid to assist, not to have opinions." Whitman's voice turned sharp. "Give her the envelope when he's in recovery. Understood." A pause. "Yes, doctor." I forced myself to stay motionless, to keep breathing steady, to give no sign I'd heard every word. The procedure continued, 30 minutes that felt like hours. My mind raced through possibilities, each worse than the last. What was in that envelope? Why did Catherine know it was coming? At 10:30, they wheeled me into recovery. I kept my eyes mostly closed, watching through slitted lids as Roberts moved nervously, glancing at something in her scrub pocket. The envelope. Catherine appeared in the doorway. "Can I see him?" "He's still coming out of it," Robert said. "Dr. Whitman wanted to speak with you first." Consultation room 2 down the hall. "Perfect," Catherine said. Perfect, I thought. They think I'm still unconscious. After Catherine left, I forced my eyes open. Water, I managed. Roberts jumped. "Mr. Hayward, you're awake earlier than expected." "Bathroom," I said, sitting up. My head spun from the anesthesia, but my mind was razor sharp. I moved to the small bathroom and locked the door. From the narrow window, I could see directly into consultation room 2. Catherine sat alone at first. Then Nurse Roberts entered, placed an envelope on the table, and quietly left without a word. Catherine stared at it for a moment before picking it up with trembling hands. I watched her open it. Her face transformed. Shock, then something like satisfaction, then tears. But they weren't tears of sadness. I'd been married to this woman for 25 years. I knew her tales. These were tears of relief. A moment later, Whitman entered the room. He sat across from her, leaned forward. They spoke. I couldn't hear through the glass. Then he reached across the table, placed his hand over hers. The gesture was too familiar, too intimate. His thumb stroked the back of her hand. She didn't pull away. This wasn't a doctor comforting a patient's wife. This was something else entirely. Genuine nausea hit me. The anesthesia, the betrayal, the fury. I vomited into the toilet when I emerged pale and shaking. Roberts looked concerned. Hayward. Where's my wife? She just left. Emergency at work. She'll pick you up in 2 hours. Of course you did. I pulled out my phone with shaking hands. There was only one person I could trust. I texted Thomas, I need you. Something's very wrong. 2 days after the surgery. September 17th, a Thursday afternoon, I sat across from Thomas Dalton in his cluttered office above a pawn shop on 7th Street. We'd been friends since we were 12 years old. If anyone could find the truth, it was him. Thomas had spent 20 years in Army C investigating everything from theft to homicide. Now he ran his own private investigation firm in Charlotte. The office looked exactly like you'd expect. Filing cabinets, coffee-stained papers, maps pinned to walls. I'd recovered well from the procedure. Minimal pain. But my mind hadn't stopped racing. Tell me everything Thomas said. I did. The overheard conversation, the envelope nurse, Roberts' nervousness, watching through that bathroom window as Roberts delivered the envelope, as Catherine opened it with trembling hands. Those tears of relief. The way Whitman entered afterward touched her hand, how intimate it looked. Thomas listened without interrupting. You want me to investigate your wife and this doctor? I want to know what was in that envelope. I want to know why she's lying to me. Thomas nodded. I can do that. But Chris, you need to stay completely calm at home. Act normal. Don't let her know you suspect anything. I can do that. Can you? Because this is going to get harder before it gets easier. I met his eyes. I've been acting fine for 2 days already. I can keep doing it. That night I went home. Had dinner with Catherine like nothing had happened. She asked how I was feeling. I said, better than expected. She smiled, kissed my cheek, went upstairs to take a call. I cleaned up the kitchen and pretended my world wasn't falling apart. 48 hours later, September 19th, a Saturday, at 2:00 in the afternoon, Thomas called me back. The change was immediate. Papers covered his desk, photos, printouts. Thomas looked like he hadn't slept. Sit down, he said. He spread files across the desk. Dr. Gregory Whitman, age 51, previously worked at Emory University Hospital in Atlanta from 2016 to 2019. Atlanta. I said he left in 2019 not voluntarily. Scandal involving a patient's wife. Nothing public, but my source says Whitman was given a choice. Resign quietly or face an ethics investigation. What kind of scandal? The inappropriate kind. He resigned, moved to Charlotte, joined Atrium Health. Thomas pulled out another document. He owns a penthouse at the View, Charlotte. $800,000, way above what a surgeon at a mid-tier medical center should afford. I knew the View luxury high-rise in Uptown. I dug into his financials. Whitman's been receiving regular cash deposits. $7,500 here, $12,000 there. Always just under the IRS reporting threshold. Money laundering maybe. And these deposits started about 2 years ago. 2 years. Not recent. This wasn't sudden. Thomas pulled out surveillance photos. Catherine entering the View's parking garage in the lobby. Getting into an elevator. She's been there 3 times since your surgery. Monday evening, Tuesday afternoon, Wednesday evening. Each visit lasted between 90 minutes and 3 hours. I stared at the photos. My wife walking into another man's building. She's having an affair, I said. The words felt hollow. Thomas was quiet, maybe. But Chris, look at this pattern. The money started 2 years ago, not recently. This isn't a new thing. This is established, organized. Something cold settled in my stomach. What are you saying? Thomas's hand rested on another folder. He hesitated. Chris, there's something else. Something you need to see. It's about Catherine's past. Thomas opened a new folder and pushed it across the table between us. I found this in the archives of the Atlanta Journal-Constitution from 26 years ago, August 1997. I pulled the folder closer. Inside was a newspaper clipping, yellowed at the edges but still legible. Social section. The headline read, Beauty Catherine Blackwell announces engagement to Dr. Gregory Whitman. The photograph beneath stopped my breath. Catherine, 24 years old, wearing a champagne silk gown, standing beside a man in a tuxedo. Gregory Whitman, 28, his arm around her waist, both of them smiling at a charity gala in Atlanta. That's impossible, I whispered. She told me she came from Rhode Island. She said she'd never been to the South before Charlotte. Thomas leaned back in his chair. She lied Chris about everything. He laid out more documents, a timeline reconstructed from public records and old society pages. August 1997. Catherine Blackwell and Dr. Gregory Whitman publicly announced their engagement at the Peachtree Medical Society Gala in Atlanta. She was working as an events coordinator for one of the city's top PR firms. He was a rising star in urology at Emory University Hospital, January 1998. The engagement was quietly called off. No public announcement. Catherine simply stopped appearing at Whitman's side. March 1998. Whitman's wife Elizabeth filed for divorce. The same month, rumors surfaced about Whitman's inappropriate relationship with a patient's spouse. Emory asked him to resign. The scandal never made the papers, but it ended his career there. June 1998. Catherine Blackwell disappeared from Atlanta's social scene entirely. No forwarding address, no goodbye, just gone. I stared at the dates, my mind racing. And then Thomas pulled out another clipping. This one from the Charlotte Business Journal, December 1998. The headline, Young Developer Inherits Hayward Corporation Following Father's Death. My own face stared back at me. 28 years old, standing in front of the half-built Hayward Tower on Trade Street, talking about honoring my father's legacy. She saw this, I said slowly. She saw this article. More than that, Thomas replied. In January 1999, a woman named Catherine Blackwell was hired as an event coordinator for the Children's Hospital Charity Gala, the same gala where Hayward Development was the lead sponsor. I remembered that night, February 1999. I'd been grieving my father for 3 months, drowning in work, barely holding the company together. And then I met her, Catherine, in a navy dress, clipboard in hand, organizing the silent auction. She'd been warm, professional, completely focused on making the night a success. Afterward, I'd asked her to dinner. She'd smiled and said yes. She told me she was new to Charlotte. I said, my voice hollow. She said she came from Rhode Island, that she wanted a fresh start. Thomas nodded. Rhode Island, a state with notoriously difficult public records. Hard to verify anything without physically going there. I felt sick. She chose me. Yes. Before we ever met, she knew who I was. She knew about the company, about my father dying, about the inheritance. My hands were shaking. She targeted me. Thomas didn't argue. He just watched me process it. And Whitman, I asked, where was he? After leaving Emory in 1998, he moved to Spartanburg, South Carolina, kept a low profile, built his reputation back up slowly. By 2019, he was clean enough to join Atrium Health in Charlotte. 2019, I repeated the year, felt significant, but I couldn't place why. Thomas pulled out one more document, an insurance policy, my life insurance policy. Chris, in February 2019, you updated your life insurance from $1 million to $3.5 million. Do you remember why I thought back? Catherine suggested it. She said with Lauren getting older, with college coming, we needed more coverage. It made sense. That same month, Thomas said quietly, Gregory Whitman moved to Charlotte. The room tilted. 25 years. She'd been lying to me for 25 years. Our entire marriage, our daughter, our home, every anniversary, every Christmas morning had been built on a foundation of deceit. Chris Thomas said, his voice gentle but firm. There's more. And this is the worst part. He reached for one final folder thicker than the others. You need to see this. All of it. I stared at the folder, my heart pounding. Whatever was inside, I knew it would destroy everything I thought I knew about my life. Idrium Health Genetic Testing Report. Test date August 28, 2023. Sample A, Chris Hayward Book, swab. Sample B, Lauren Hayward Buccal swab. Analysis paternity testing. Result probability of paternity, 0.4%. Conclusion, Chris Hayward is excluded as the biological father of Lauren Hayward. I stared at the words, read them again. Again. That's impossible. I whispered. Lauren is my daughter. I was there when she was born. I'm sorry, Chris. Thomas's voice was gentle. I found this in Catherine's cloud storage. She had it done 6 weeks ago. 6 weeks ago. While I was signing contracts, attending meetings, living my normal life, while Lauren was starting her final year of law school, while Catherine was planning whatever this was. 22 years, I said, my voice breaking. Every bedtime story, every school play, every time she called me Dad. Thomas let me sit with it for a moment. Then he slid more documents across the desk. There's more phone records, screenshots of text messages from a second phone Catherine kept hidden. Catherine to GEP 10. When will it be done? G to Catherine, Sept 11 soon. The medical records are already in place. Be patient. Catherine to G Sept 13. I'm tired of being patient. It's been 25 years, Gregory. G to Catherine Sept 14. The procedure is scheduled. After that, we wait for the right moment. 25 years, the entire length of our marriage. The procedure was your vasectomy, Thomas said, and medical records. Look at this. He showed me falsified documents from Atrium Health records indicating complications from my surgery, potential fertility issues, risk factors, all lies expertly crafted. Why would they? I stopped. The answer hit me before I finished the question. Thomas nodded. To make it look like you couldn't have children. So when Lauren's paternity is questioned, these records explain it. But Lauren is mine, I said desperately. This DNA test is fake. It has to be. Chris. Thomas's hand on my shoulder was heavy. I ran a second test. Independent lab. I have a contact who owes me. Same result. The room tilted. I couldn't breathe. There's one more thing. Thomas placed a final document in front of me. Your life insurance policy updated February 2019, $3.5 million, primary beneficiary Catherine Hayward. I remember that, I said, numbly. Catherine suggested it, she said, with Lauren getting older college costs. Gregory Whitman moved to Charlotte in February 2019. Same month you updated that policy. Everything clicked into place with sickening clarity. The 25-year lie, the targeted marriage, the daughter who wasn't mine, the fake medical records, the insurance policy, and the right moment they were waiting for. They're going to kill me, I said. Thomas didn't deny it. I don't remember driving home. One moment I was in Thomas's office, the next, I was pulling into my garage in Myers Park. The house was dark. Catherine was already in bed. I stood in the doorway of our bedroom watching her sleep. She looked peaceful, beautiful, even the woman I'd loved for 25 years. The woman who'd given me a daughter who wasn't mine, the woman who was planning to kill me. I climbed into bed beside her, careful not to wake her. She shifted slightly unconsciously, moving closer to me, the way she had for 2.5 decades. That night I lay awake in the dark, listening to her breathe. And I realized I had no idea who she was. I never had. 1 week after Thomas showed me that DNA report, September 28th of Thursday morning, I drove 4 hours to Atlanta. Thomas had arranged a meeting with Elizabeth Warner, the woman who used to be Elizabeth Whitman, the woman who understood Gregory Whitman better than anyone, the woman who had every reason to hate him. If anyone could tell me what kind of man I was up against, it was her. I met Elizabeth at 10 Bar at Octane Coffee in Virginia Highland. She was 49, platinum blonde, elegant, in a way that suggested old money, but her eyes carried the same exhaustion I saw in my mirror every morning. I told Catherine I was in Charleston for a site inspection. Another lie, and what was becoming a web of them. Elizabeth studied me across the table. "You have the same look I had 26 years ago," she said. The look of someone who just realized they'd been played. I showed her the photograph of the DNA report on my phone. She examined it carefully, zooming in, studying every detail. "May I screenshot this?" she asked. I nodded. She took several images, then opened her laptop. "This is fake," she said flatly. "How can you know that?" She pulled up a file on her screen, a legitimate DNA report, from Atrium Health, her daughter's paternity test, from the custody battle years ago. "Look at the header format," she said, placing the images side by side. "The font, the signature block. This isn't how Atrium Health formats their genetic reports. I know because my daughter had testing done there last year for a medical condition." She pointed to specific details. The footer spacing was wrong. The physician's signature style was different. The report number didn't match Atrium's numbering system. For the first time in a week, I felt something like hope. "You're saying Lauren might actually be mine? I'm saying Gregory has done this before falsifying medical records. It's part of why he had to leave Emory." A patient complained that he'd altered their biopsy report to show cancer when there was none, just to pressure them into expensive treatments. We settled out of court. I still have copies of everything from the divorce. She told me about 1997 and 1998. Gregory had been having an affair with Catherine, who was 24, and working in PR. He'd promised to leave Elizabeth. Instead, he'd announced his engagement to Catherine publicly, before even telling Elizabeth he wanted a divorce. Elizabeth found out from the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. She'd gone to Catherine's apartment to confront them both. Catherine was genuinely shocked. Elizabeth said she had no idea Gregory was still married. She broke off the engagement immediately. That same week, I filed for divorce, and Whitman blamed both of you. Gregory never forgives Mr. Hayward. Never. In his mind, Catherine and I conspired to destroy him. He blamed us equally for his lost career, his ruined reputation at Emory, everything. The man holds grudges like some people collect stamps. So they reconnected, apparently. And if they're working together now, they're both out for revenge. Catherine wants to punish me for destroying her engagement. Gregory wants to punish both of us. And you, Chris, you're their meal ticket. She handed me a USB drive, divorce records, Gregory's journals. He kept them obsessively and the court subpoenaed them. Medical board complaints. All of it's here. You'll need it. She paused, then added, "One more thing. Catherine has a sister. Christine, I think, no Melody. I never met her, but Gregory mentioned her once. Said she was a forensic accountant. Said she tried to warn Catherine about him back then. You think the sister's involved if Catherine and Gregory are running a long con? They'll need someone to handle the money. Someone smart. Someone in the family." Elizabeth's expression hardened. "Watch for shell companies, offshore accounts. That's how people like this operate." When I left Atlanta that afternoon, Elizabeth's words echoed in my mind during the entire 4-hour drive home. Gregory never forgives Chris, and neither does Catherine. If they're working together again, you're not just being cheated on. You're in serious danger. Watch your back. I gripped the steering wheel tighter, the USB drive heavy in my pocket. I'd gone to Atlanta looking for answers. I'd found them. But I'd also found something more terrifying. Confirmation that I was caught in a trap 25 years in the making, and the walls were closing in. The next evening, Friday, September 29th, tense. Rue at night, Thomas called. "Get here now. I've connected everything. Chris, this is bigger than an affair. This is a 25-year con." When I arrived at his office, it looked like something out of a detective movie. Papers, photographs, and financial records covered every surface. Red strings connected pieces of evidence on a massive board mounted on the wall. And there in the center of it all was my face. Thomas had been working for 48 hours straight. Coffee cups littered his desk. His eyes were bloodshot but sharp. "Sit down," he said. "This is going to take a while." He walked me through it piece by piece. The timeline. August 1997. Catherine and Whitman's engagement scandal in Atlanta. June 1998. Catherine disappeared. December 1998. I appeared in the Charlotte Business Journal after inheriting Hayward Development following my father's death. Here's what I found. Thomas said that charity gala in February 1999. Catherine wasn't hired randomly. She applied for that position immediately after your article came out. He showed me recovered email archives, Catherine contacting the event company, mentioning her interest in the Charlotte market and how working with Hayward Development would be prestigious. February 1999. Catherine accidentally met me. November 1999, we married fast. 2001, Lauren was born. 2004, 21, Catherine quietly, steadily drained money. February 2019. I updated my life insurance to $3.5 million after the company's major expansion. The same month, Gregory Whitman moved to Charlotte. 2021-2023. Catherine's cash withdrawals accelerated. The financial trail. Thomas pulled up spreadsheets on his laptop. Total, withdrawn from your joint accounts over 23 years, $485,000. I stared at the number. Nearly $500,000. The pattern, Thomas continued, was always small amounts, $1,500 to $3,000 per month, always labeled household expenses or charitable donations. Nothing that would trigger your attention. He clicked to another screen. But here's where it gets interesting. A shell company called Blackwell Consulting LLC registered in Delaware in 2019. The operators are listed as C. Blackwell and M. Kaufman. Mr. Kaufman, I said slowly. Melody Kaufman. Catherine's sister, 46-years-old forensic accountant, living in Durham, North Carolina, 2 hours away. Thomas showed me the money flow joint account, Blackwell Consulting multiple sub-accounts, cash payments to Whitman. Whitman's been receiving between $7,500 and $12,000 monthly for the past 2 years. That's roughly $250,000 total. Jesus, this is money laundering, Chris. Professional grade. Melody built this entire infrastructure. The pattern. Why wait 25 years? I asked, my voice hollow. They weren't waiting, Thomas said. They were building your trust, building the company's value, building the insurance payout, and most importantly, building plausible deniability. He pulled up company valuations across the years. 1999, $2.5 million, Tabara, $10.8 million, Cromwell, $22 million after our major expansion. Right now, you're worth more than you've ever been, Thomas said quietly. With that $3.5 million life insurance policy plus selling the company, Catherine could walk away with over $15 million. The room spun. 25 years, every kiss goodnight, every anniversary dinner, every time she'd smiled at me across the breakfast table while Lauren chattered about school. All of it, every single moment had been a lie designed to extract maximum value from my death. They were farming me, I said, like livestock. Thomas didn't disagree. He reached for another folder thicker than the others. His expression darkened. That's the financial con, he said. But Chris, there's something worse. Your medical records. Whitman's been setting you up for the past 3 years. He opened the folder. You need to see this. Thomas opened the medical files and spread them across his desk. I hacked into Atrium Health System. Don't ask how. Whitman's been tracking your health for 3 years, Chris. Since 2020. I leaned forward studying the documents. November 2020. My routine physical for insurance renewal. The report was signed by Dr. Harrison, but there was a consultation note from Dr. Gregory Whitman. Urology completely unnecessary for a standard physical. He ordered additional tests, Thomas said, pointing to the list. Comprehensive metabolic panel hormone levels, genetic markers, things Harrison never requested. The next document, February 2021. I gone to the ER with stomach flu. The attending physician was Dr. Patterson, but Whitman had added himself as a consulting physician and ordered tests I was never told about. July 2022. My annual checkup. Again, Whitman had inserted himself as consulting urologist and collected more specimens. He was building a medical profile on you, Thomas explained. Every test, every sample, every health metric he was searching for natural conditions that could kill you. And when he didn't find any, he had to create a reason. Thomas pulled up the surgical report from September 15th, my vasectomy. The official record stated complications during the procedure, excessive bleeding, requiring additional surgical intervention, high risk for infection, and long-term complications. I stared at it, but I recovered perfectly. There was barely any pain. Exactly. Those complications never happened. But now there's a medical record saying they did, and that record includes the liability waiver you signed. The realization hit me like a punch to the gut. Any future urological problems, infection, tissue damage, even cancer could be blamed on surgical complications from the vasectomy. The legal cover was brilliant. It would be Whitman's malpractice, not Catherine's fault. She'd sue the hospital for a settlement, then collect the life insurance on top of it. The timeline for your accident would be 6 to 12 months post-surgery, Thomas said. When complications would be considered medically plausible, he pulled out my life insurance documents next. $3. $5 million updated in February 2019, the same month Whitman had moved to Charlotte. Primary beneficiary, Catherine Hayward Soule. But it was the secondary beneficiary clause that made my blood run cold. Lauren would inherit, but only when she turned 25. Until then, Catherine would manage everything. That was 3 years away. If you die from complications, it's classified as a medical incident, Thomas said quietly. Catherine gets everything. Lauren doesn't see a dime until she's 25. By then, Catherine and Whitman will be long gone. What about Lauren? I asked, my voice tight. What's their plan for her? Thomas hesitated, then pulled up an email on his screen, recovered from Catherine's cloud storage, synced from that hidden second phone. The email was dated August 5th, 2023. Sent to Whitman. When everything is settled and stable, we'll send Elle to boarding school in Europe. There's a good one in Switzerland. We'll set up a trust fund. $200,000 should be enough to keep her quiet. She's collateral damage, but necessary. She'll adapt. Kids always do. By the time she's 25 and receives her inheritance, we'll be settled somewhere warm. She'll never find us. Whitman's reply was even colder. Agreed. The daughter is not my problem. Never was. I sat there staring at those words. Collateral damage. They were going to take my daughter from me, not kill her, but erase her from their lives. Ship her off to Europe like unwanted baggage, then disappear with the money. A cold fury settled over me, different from anything I'd ever felt. It wasn't hot rage. It was calculating, methodical, Chris Thomas said carefully. What are you going to do? I stood up and looked at the investigation board, at all the evidence spread before me. For the first time since this nightmare began, I smiled. It was a cold smile. They think I'm a trusting fool, I said. A decent man who will react emotionally when he discovers the truth. I turned to Thomas. They're wrong. We're going to destroy them completely, legally, permanently. How they're planning for my death. So let's give them exactly what they want, a perfect opportunity to act. And when they make their move, we'll have them on record confessing everything. Thomas's expression shifted from concern to something like admiration. A slow smile spread across his face. Now you're thinking like a hunter instead of prey. No, I said. I'm thinking like a man with nothing to lose except my daughter, and I'll burn this entire thing down before I let them take her from me. Friday evening, October 13th. Everything was ready. 2 weeks of meticulous preparation, 2 weeks of playing the perfectly recovering husband while building an airtight trap. Tonight, Catherine and Gregory would destroy themselves with their own words, and I would be there to witness it. The preparation had been careful and methodical. Thomas had hired a tech expert and befriended Mike, the building maintenance supervisor at the View. Mike was 45, had 2 kids in college, and a gambling problem that had left him $12,000 in debt for $17,000, 5 in cash, 12 to clear his debt. Mike had led us into Whitman's penthouse at 2:00 in the morning on October 3rd. 4 cameras went in living room, bedroom, kitchen, hallway. Audio devices were hidden in the AC vents. Everything streamed directly to Thomas's surveillance van. Mike never asked what we were doing. He didn't want to know. The second week, Thomas had contacted Detective John Morrison of the Charlotte Mecklenburg Police Department. Morrison was 48, specialized in medical fraud, and had a personal interest in Whitman. He'd investigated the Emory scandal years ago, but hadn't been able to make charges stick. If you get me evidence, Morrison had set his eyes hard. I'll get the arrest warrant. I'd also gotten a real DNA test done at a private lab. The results came back with 99.9% probability that Lauren was my daughter, not Catherine's lie, not Whitman's fabrication, the truth. Thomas had been tracking Melody Kaufman's movements as well, confirming her involvement in the money laundering. We had arrest warrants prepared for all 3 of them, Catherine, Whitman, and Melody. Simultaneous arrests. No one would have time to warn the others. Now at 4:00 Friday afternoon, I sat in Thomas's surveillance van in a parking lot across from the View. Morrison was with us checking the equipment for the 3rd time. All cameras operational, Thomas confirmed. Audio is crystal clear. Morrison leaned back in his chair. We need them to discuss the murder plan explicitly, not hints or implications. Clear intent. They will, I said. Catherine's been pushing about timing. I can feel it. She's getting impatient. At 5:30, I called Catherine from my office. Hey, honey, I have to work late tonight. Big meeting with a client about the South End project. Don't wait up for me. Probably won't be home until 11:00. Oh, her voice was too bright, too eager. Okay, no problem. I'll just rest. Maybe watch a movie. I heard what she didn't say. The relief in her voice. The opportunity I just handed her. At 6:15, our surveillance camera caught Catherine leaving the house in Myers Park. She was dressed up, heels, a dress I'd bought her last Christmas. Not the outfit of someone planning to watch movies alone at home. At 6:45, her car pulled into the View's parking garage. At 7:00, the penthouse camera showed Catherine letting herself in. She had her own key, of course she did. Whitman opened the door. They embraced immediately, not the hug of friends or colleagues, the embrace of lovers. They kissed his hand, sliding into her hair, her body pressed against his. I sat in the van watching the screen and felt nothing. The man I'd been a month ago would have been devastated, but that man had died the moment I'd learned the truth. You okay? Thomas asked quietly. I stopped loving her the moment I heard that conversation in the operating room. I said, "This is just confirmation." Morrison adjusted the audio equipment. Everything's recording perfectly. Now we wait. On the screen, Catherine poured wine. They sat on the sofa talking casually for about 10 minutes. I would fast forward through this part later. But then Catherine set down her glass and turned to Whitman, her expression shifting. How much longer, Gregory? She said, her voice clear through our speakers. I'm tired of pretending. Thomas adjusted the volume. Morrison leaned forward, hand on his radio, ready to call for backup the moment we had what we needed. I put on my headphones. Let's hear what they really think of me. I said, let's hear them condemn themselves. The audio came through crystal clear. Catherine's voice, the voice that had said, I love you for 25 years, was saying something entirely different now. I don't understand why we can't move forward, she said. It's been 25 years, Gregory. 25 years playing housewife to a man I can barely stand. Whitman's voice was calm, measured. Patience, darling. We've come this far. The medical records are perfect. The surgical complications are documented. We just need the right moment. What kind of moment, Catherine asked. An accident. Are we really going to? She hesitated. Are we going to make it happen? We don't need to make anything happen. Construction sites are inherently dangerous. A 54-year-old man who just had surgical complications working long hours under high stress, a fall, faulty equipment, a heart attack from overexertion. Any of those would be tragically believable. What about the autopsy will show exactly what I've documented, Whitman said. Underly surgical trauma stress on the system. Natural progression of complications. The medical examiner will sign off without question. Catherine's voice brightened. You're sure it will work? His company insurance will pay out. Between the workers' comp and your $3.5 million life insurance policy, you're looking at close to $5 million plus selling Hayward development. Total around 15 to 18 million. Catherine laughed. Actually laughed. After all these years, finally, we deserve it, Whitman said. What they did to us in Atlanta. Your mother humiliating me. Elizabeth destroying my career. You losing the life you deserved? This is justice. What about Lauren? Catherine asked. She's been asking questions. She notices I'm distracted. What about her? She's not my child. She's barely his either emotionally. He works too much. She'll grieve for a while, then move on. We send her to boarding school in Zurich, set up the trust fund. By the time she's 25 and gets her share, we'll be in Costa Rica or somewhere without extradition. She's 22 now, Whitman said. Only 3 more years. She'll adapt. Kids always do. Besides, she's just collateral damage. Not our problem. When do we act soon? Within the next 2 months before the holidays. Accidents spike during busy season. People will believe it. In the surveillance van, my fists were clenched so tight my knuckles had gone white, but my face remained calm. That's enough, Morrison said, reaching for his radio. Clear conspiracy to commit murder. I'm calling it in. Wait, I said. Let them finish. I want it all. 2 more minutes of conversation followed spending plans, tropical locations, new identities. Then Morrison gave the order, gave the yes. All units, this is Morrison. Go, go, go. We rode the elevator to the 24th floor. Thomas Morrison, 4 uniformed officers and me. My heart was pounding, but my hands were steady. At 7:35, Morrison knocked on the penthouse door. Dr. Whitman, Charlotte Mecklenburg, police. Open the door. Silence. Then, whispers inside. Morrison knocked harder. We have a search warrant. Open now or we break it down. The door opened. Whitman stood there in casual clothes, trying to look calm. Officers, what's this about Dr. Gregory Whitman? Morrison said. You're under arrest for conspiracy to commit murder, medical fraud, and insurance fraud. He read Whitman his Miranda rights while snapping on the handcuffs. Catherine appeared from deeper in the apartment. Gregory, what? She stopped when she saw me standing in the hallway. The color drained from her face. Chris, she stammered. What is this? I looked at her. This woman I'd loved for 25 years and felt nothing but cold resolve. It's over, Catherine. All of it. Her eyes darted between Whitman and me. Understanding dawned. You knew how long? Long enough? Long enough to hear every word you just said. Every plan, every lie. 25 years of lies. An officer stepped forward. Catherine Hayward. You're under arrest for conspiracy to commit murder fraud and money laundering. You can't do this. She screamed as they handcuffed her. Lauren is my daughter. I stepped closer. Lauren is my daughter, my biological daughter. That DNA test you showed me fake like everything else about you, but you knew that, didn't you? Shock flashed across her face. She hadn't expected me to know about the DNA test. Gregory told me you'd never find out. Shut up, Catherine Whitman shouted, but it was too late. I found the second phone, I said quietly. I found the emails. I found your shell company and your sister. I found everything. Anger replaced the fear on her face. You bastard. You self-righteous bastard. No, I said I'm the man who trusted you for 25 years, who gave you everything, who loved you, and you were planning to kill me for money. As they led her toward the elevator, she screamed back at me. Lauren will never forgive you for this. She'll hate you. Maybe, I said, but she'll be alive, and eventually she'll know the truth. Morrison touched my arm. We're arresting Melody Kaufman in Durham right now. Simultaneous Whitman, being led into the elevator, sneered at me. You won't win this. My lawyers? Your lawyers will hear the recording, I said. All of it. Enjoy prison, Gregory. When I walked out of that building at 8:15 that evening, I felt nothing but cold satisfaction. Justice was coming, but I knew this wasn't over. There was one more battle ahead, the hardest one. Lauren didn't know what her mother had done yet. And when she found out, I had no idea if she'd believe me. That night, October 13th at 10:47, I sat alone in my car outside the house in Myers Park. The house was dark. Lauren wasn't home yet. I had to tell her before she heard it from anyone else, before Catherine called her from jail. My hands shook as I dialed her number. I thought the worst was already over. I was wrong. The hardest part was hearing my daughter see me as the villain. Dad, Lauren answered. It's late. Is everything okay? Lauren, I need you to come home. I have to talk to you about your mother. My mom. What's wrong? Is she okay? She's been arrested, Lauren. I need to explain. What arrested? For what I tried to stay calm. There are things about your mother you don't know. About our marriage. Wait. Her voice turned cold. Dad. Mom called me 20 minutes ago from jail. She told me everything. How you framed her, how you trapped her, how you wanted her gone. Lauren, that isn't true. Please listen. I can't believe you do this to Mom. She cried. 25 years and you just throw her away. Lauren, please come home. Let me show you the evidence. Click. She hung up. The next 3 days were torture. 3 days. I texted her, begging her to call. No reply. I called her again and again. Straight to voicemail. On October 15th, she finally texted, I can't believe you treat Mom like this. 25 years and you throw her away like garbage. I'm staying at Emma's. Don't contact me. I sent her a long message explaining everything, the conversation. I overheard the DNA test, the recordings. She read it. Seen at 3:42 p.m. She didn't answer. On October 16th, Thomas told me Lauren had hired a lawyer for Catherine. David Cooper, young, prestigious, expensive. She's serious about defending her mother, Thomas said. She doesn't know the truth, I replied. Catherine got to her first. I spent the next 4 days writing Lauren a letter, 6 handwritten pages. I told her how I met Catherine, the 25 years we built the lies. I uncovered the murder plot. Near the end, I wrote that she had every right to be angry, every right not to believe me. Her mother had spent 22 years being a good mother to her, and I didn't doubt she loved Lauren in her own way. But love and truth were not always the same. I wasn't asking her to stop loving her mother. I was asking her to listen to the truth, not from me, but from the evidence and from her mother's own words. I mailed the letter on October 17th. By October 20th, there was still no response. Let me talk to her, Thomas offered. Show her the evidence. No, I said if I force it, she'll never forgive me. She has to find the truth herself, and if she doesn't, then I lose my daughter. But at least she'll be alive. That's all that matters. 8 weeks passed. Lauren never came home. Every night I returned to an empty house. Her bedroom door closed her absence everywhere. Once I stood outside her room, looking at childhood photos, law books, the life she was building. I survived 25 years of lies. I defeated murderers, but I couldn't reach my own daughter. She texted, "Sometimes I'm fine still at Emma's." Thanksgiving came. Lauren spent it with Emma's family. I ate alone. Through Thomas, I learned she was visiting Catherine in jail every week. Catherine was poisoning her mind, calling me controlling and abusive, claiming she'd planned a divorce, and I retaliated. Trial preparation began. I worked with prosecutors, gave depositions, reviewed evidence, but my heart wasn't in it. What did justice matter if I'd lost my daughter? Then on the morning of December 8th, my phone rang. Thomas. Chris Lauren came to my office an hour ago. My chest tightened. Why she wants to see the evidence, all of it. Does she believe me? Not yet, Thomas said. But she's starting to doubt her mother. She found something herself. This is a start. I stared out my office window at the Charlotte skyline. 8 weeks of silence, 8 weeks of loss. But for the first time since that night, I felt something I hadn't dared to feel. Hope. The trial was still 8 months away, but the most important moment did not happen in a courtroom. It happened on December 12th inside a visiting room at Mecklenburg County Jail. I only learned about it because 3 days later, my daughter finally came home. Lauren told me what led to that visit. On December 8th, Thomas showed her everything. The audio recordings, the financial records, the timeline, the emails about boarding school. She heard her mother's voice saying, "Len is collateral damage, not our problem." That was when her world began to crack. On December 9th, Lauren couldn't sleep. She replayed the recording again and again, unable to escape her mother's words. On December 10th, while I was at work, she went back to our house and searched her old bedroom. In a drawer, she found an old iPhone from high school from 2018 when she was 17. She turned it on and scrolled through old messages. In a 2019 text thread, she found messages from Catherine to an unknown number. "I can't stand it anymore. 4 more years until she's in college, then we can proceed." The reply read, "We've waited 20 years, 4 more is nothing." Catherine wrote back, "Easy for you to say. You don't have to pretend every day." That was when Lauren realized her mother had planned everything long before I ever knew. On December 11th, she finally opened my 6-page letter, the one she had kept unread for weeks. She cried as she read it. One line stayed with her. "Your mother spent 22 years being a good mother to you. I don't doubt she loves you, but love and truth aren't always the same." On December 12th at 2 in the afternoon, Lauren went to the jail. In visiting room 3, Catherine sat across from her in an orange jumpsuit, hair pulled back, looking older than Lauren remembered. When she saw Lauren, she smiled and said she had missed her. Lauren didn't smile. "Mom, I need the truth." Catherine tried to deflect blaming me, but Lauren stopped her. She asked if Catherine had known me before 1999. When Lauren mentioned photos from Atlanta in 1997 with Dr. Whitman, Catherine froze. Lauren asked if she had planned to marry me for money. Catherine tried to reframe the past, but Lauren told her she had seen both DNA tests, the real one proving I was her father, and the fake one saying I wasn't. When Lauren mentioned the recordings, Catherine went silent. Lauren confronted her about the murder plot, the boarding school plan, and being called collateral damage. Catherine tried to justify everything, speaking about past suffering, but Lauren pushed back. "So you married my father, lied for 25 years, stole from him, and planned to kill him?" Lauren asked. Catherine's voice turned cold. She said I was supposed to be an easy target, a grieving, trusting man. She never thought I would find out. The words shattered Lauren. She realized everything I had said was true, that her childhood had been built on lies. Lauren asked if Catherine had ever loved either of us. Catherine reached for her hand, claiming she did it all for Lauren's future. Lauren pulled away. She said the plan was never about her, that she was meant to be sent away, while Catherine disappeared with the money. Lauren cried as she admitted she had defended her mother, hired a lawyer, and cut me off, all while Catherine planned my death. She stood to leave, paused once, and told Catherine she hoped it had been worth losing her daughter. Then she walked out without looking back. 3 days later, on December 15th, I was working in my home office when I heard the front door open. We hadn't changed the locks. My heart stopped. Then I heard her voice, soft and uncertain. "Dad, are you home?" I stood up so fast my chair crashed to the floor. I appeared in the doorway of my office. Lauren stood in the hallway with a duffel bag at her feet, her eyes red and swollen from crying. For a long second, neither of us spoke. We just looked at each other, afraid to move. Then the bag slipped from her hand and hit the floor. "Dad." Her voice broke. I stayed where I was, terrified that if I stepped forward, the moment would disappear. "Lauren?" She crossed the space between us in 3 quick steps and threw herself into my arms. Her body shook as she sobbed against my chest. "I'm sorry, Dad. I'm so sorry. I didn't believe you. I chose Mom over you. I'm so sorry." I wrapped my arms around her, tears streaming down my own face. "It's okay," I whispered. "You're here now. That's all that matters. It's not okay." She pulled back, looking at me through tears. "I said horrible things. I thought you lied. I thought you were protecting someone you loved," I said softly. "There's nothing wrong with that. You had no reason to doubt your mother." We stood there holding each other, both of us crying, until the storm finally eased. Then we moved to the living room and sat on the couch. Lauren told me everything. Thomas's office, the recordings, the old phone, the jail visit. "When Mom said you were supposed to be an easy mark," she said, shaking her head, "I felt sick my whole childhood. Everything I believed. It was all a lie." "Not all of it," I said. "I've loved you since the moment you were born. That was real. It's always been real." But Mom wasn't, was she? Her voice was small. She was just acting. "I don't know what your mother felt," I said carefully. "Maybe she loved you in her own way, but that doesn't matter anymore. What matters is that you're safe. You're here." "She really was going to kill you," Lauren said, "and send me away." "Yes." "How long did you know?" "Since September 15th, the day of the surgery." Her eyes widened as she did the math. 3 months. "You knew for 3 months." "And I was defending her. I hated you. You didn't know the truth." "But you did," she said quietly. "And you still waited. You still wrote me that letter." "Why didn't you force me to listen?" "Because you're not a child anymore," I said. "You had to choose the truth yourself. If I had forced you, you would have hated me forever." "I might have anyway," she whispered. "What if I never found out?" "Then I would have lost you," I said. "But you'd be alive. That was all that mattered to me." Fresh tears ran down her face. "How can you forgive me? There's nothing to forgive." I said, "You're my daughter. I will always love you." After a moment, she asked, "What do we do now?" "Now there's a trial," I said. "Your mother and the others will face justice. I'll have to testify, won't I?" "Maybe only if you're ready," she straightened. "I'm ready. I want the truth known." "You don't have to." "I do," she said firmly. "You stood by me when I didn't deserve it. Now let me stand with you." I pulled her close. "Okay, we'll face it together." "Together," she said, "just you and me." She asked if she could stay, if she could come home. I told her this had always been her home and always would be. That night, Lauren slept in her own bed for the first time in 2 months. I lay awake, overwhelmed with gratitude. The trial was still ahead. The fight wasn't over, but I had my daughter back. And together, we would face whatever came next. 8 months after the arrests on June 19, 2024, Lauren and I walked into Mecklenburg County Courthouse together. It had taken that long to prepare for trial, 8 months of depositions, evidence review, and legal procedures, but we were ready. The prosecutors were ready. Most importantly, the evidence was undeniable. Judge Helen Richardson, 62 stern but fair, presided over the case. Prosecutors Maria Morgan and Robert Torres faced a team of expensive defense attorneys representing all three defendants. During the first 2 days, the jury heard the recordings. Catherine's voice echoed through the courtroom. 25 years playing housewife to a man I can barely stand. Gregory Whitman followed cold and methodical. Construction sites are dangerous. A fall, faulty equipment, a heart attack, any of it would be believable. Then the discussion about Lauren Collateral Damage Boarding School in Zurich. By the time she's 25, we'll be gone. The courtroom was silent. I watched the jury absorb every word. Shock, disgust, disbelief written across their faces. Lauren sat beside me, gripping my hand, tears running freely. Catherine stared ahead, expressionless. Whitman occasionally glanced at his lawyer. Next came the financial evidence. $485,000 stolen over 23 years. The shell company Blackwell Consulting LLC. $250,000 transferred to Whitman. Melody Kaufman's involvement laid bare. Then the medical records. Fabricated complications. Whitman's unauthorized consultations on my health. The forged DNA test beside the real one. Dr. Patricia Moore testified that the real test showed a 99.9% probability that I was Lauren's father. She identified multiple inconsistencies in the fake report. On the third day, Christine Blackwell testified. She had accepted a plea deal. She admitted creating the shell company and laundering money. She claimed she believed the murder plot was only talk. That defense collapsed when the prosecution introduced her email. When will it happen? And I need to prepare the account structure for afterward. Days 4 and 5 belonged to Elizabeth Warner. She told the Atlanta story the engagement, betrayal, divorce. She explained Whitman's pattern of falsifying records and introduced his journals. Gregory Whitman never forgives. She said, "This is revenge, 26 years in the making." On day 6, I testified. I described overhearing the conversation, discovering the DNA test, meeting Elizabeth, and uncovering the conspiracy. The defense tried to portray me as paranoid and controlling. I stayed calm. I gave my daughter space to find the truth herself. I said, "That isn't control, that's love." Day 7 was Lauren's turn. Nervous but steady, she spoke about her childhood. "My mother was loving," she said. "But love can be a performance, and my mother was an excellent actress." She described the jail visit and Catherine's confession. When the defense objected, Lauren looked at the jury. She said my father was supposed to be an easy mark. Those were her words. Catherine looked away. "My mother planned to kill my father and send me away. I'm here because I want justice and I want my father safe." On day 8, closing arguments were brief. The prosecution called it 25 years of calculated fraud and conspiracy to murder. The defense argued talk wasn't murder. The jury deliberated 3 hours. At noon, they replayed the recordings. At 3 p.m. on June 28th, they returned. Whitman was found guilty on all counts. 25 years, no parole license revoked. Catherine received 18 years. Christine received 8. I felt no triumph, only relief. When the gavel fell, Lauren squeezed my hand. The evidence had won. But more than that, my daughter stood beside me, safe, alive, knowing the truth. And that mattered more than any verdict ever could. 1 year after the trial, in June 2025, I stood on the rooftop of Hayward Development Group's new headquarters in Uptown Charlotte. The 15-story building of glass and steel rose over South Tryon Street, reflecting the late afternoon sun. From that height, I could see the entire city, and beyond it, the horizon where my daughter was building her future. I was 55 now. My hair had turned gray at the temples, and the lines around my eyes had deepened. Yet I didn't feel older. I felt reborn. The rooftop door opened and Lauren stepped out with 2 cups of coffee. She wasn't a girl anymore. She was 23, a recent graduate of UNCC Law School preparing for the bar exam. She wore a white shirt, jeans, her hair in a simple ponytail, and a confident smile I once feared I'd never see again. "Have you been up here all morning?" she asked, handing me a cup. "Only 15 minutes, I said. "Sometimes I still can't believe we survived all of it." "We survived more than that, Dad," she replied gently. She was right. Recovery had begun the day she came home. The first months were hard, filled with questions about the past and about her mother. But together, step by step, we rebuilt trust in ourselves. "There's something I want you to know," I said. "In 5 years, when I turn 60, I'll hand you full control of the company. Starting now, you'll learn everything alongside me." Lauren nodded kindly. "Why me? I'm just starting." "Because this isn't just a company," I said. "It's a legacy. And legacy isn't what I build. It's what I pass on to you." She placed her hand on my shoulder. "I won't let you down. I know." We looked out at the city together. After a moment, Lauren spoke again. She told me how during her final year at UNC, she feared she might carry something dark from her mother. Then she realized she wasn't Catherine's reflection. She was my daughter, raised with truth and integrity. Tears filled my eyes, but they were proud ones. "You chose who you are," I said. "That's what matters." She thanked me for giving her time to find the truth. We embraced. Catherine was serving 18 years. Whitman was sentenced to 25. Christine had served her time. Their lives were over. Dad, Lauren said, smiling, "I'm seeing someone." I laughed. "Tell me." She told me about James, an engineer she met at a fundraiser, honest, kind, unafraid of her past. "I'd like to meet him," I said. "You will this weekend." As the sun dipped lower, the city glowed gold. I thought of the pain we'd endured and what remained. Lauren had been meant as a tool, but she became my hope. "I'm grateful," she said quietly, "because I learned what truth really means." "So did I replied. "Legacy isn't what we leave behind, it's how we live." That evening, the company stood strong, valued near $28 million. We had founded the Hayward Foundation for Truth and Justice, turning pain into purpose. Later on my porch, I read Lauren's message. "I love you, Dad." I smiled, gazing at the stars. Truth, justice, love. That was the legacy that mattered. So here I am today, 55 years old, sharing this true story with you. Not for sympathy, but so you won't make the same mistakes I did. For 25 years, I trusted blindly. I never asked the hard questions. I never verified what seemed too perfect. That's the lesson God taught me the hard way. Trust, but verify. Love deeply, but keep your eyes open. My grandpa's stories always emphasize this wisdom, and I wish I'd listened sooner. Don't ignore the red flags. When something feels off, it probably is. Catherine came into my life at the perfect moment, too perfect. She knew exactly what to say, exactly how to act. I was vulnerable after my business success, and she exploited that. Learn from my true story. Predators study their prey. Protect your assets, but more importantly, protect your heart and your children. I almost lost Lauren because I was too trusting. God gave me a second chance when Thomas uncovered the truth, and I thank him every day for that intervention. Not everyone gets that chance. The greatest legacy isn't money or buildings. It's teaching your children to recognize deception and live with integrity. This true story isn't just mine. It's a cautionary tale for every parent, every spouse, every person who believes love conquers all without wisdom. God watches over us even through betrayal. These grandpa stories we pass down exist for a reason to warn the next generation. My grandpa's stories taught me that truth always surfaces and justice eventually prevails. If this resonated with you, please share this true story. Comment below if you've experienced similar betrayal or have advice for others. Subscribe to this channel for more real-life lessons that can protect your family. Your engagement helps others avoid my mistakes.